Next, let's devote our valuable time to answering the many questions that students have just raised. Due to time constraints in this session, we've done a simple selection of the questions that were raised earlier. Let's invite Khenpo to answer some of the students' questions one by one at this time. This one is related to Buddhism. If someone arises mind without dwelling on anything, will there still be karmic consequences if they break precepts? This is a question from several students.
Thus, one should give rise to the mind without dwelling on anything is a well-known phrase from the Diamond Sutra in Buddhist teachings. At that particular moment when the sixth patriarch heard this, he attained enlightenment. In essence, that's the story. What it means is that all phenomena have nowhere to abide, yet the luminous mind also arises from this. In other words, it essentially refers to the innate luminous mind that humans possess. That this luminous mind is a specialized term in Buddhism. I'm afraid that today many people, if they haven't had some specialized or systematic study of Buddhism, may not fully understand this concept. What it actually means is that the human mind, or the way we think, has several different and distinct modes. I've explained this before when I talked about the Diamond Sutra. Today we're explaining that this luminous mind will continue on without interruption from moment to moment always. Is there cause and effect in this process as it unfolds over time? There certainly is in every instance. I also talked about this in the previous class today. Everyone here must pay attention to cause and effect in your choices and actions. Do more good deeds and avoid doing many bad things. If you commit too many bad deeds, you'll accumulate many negative seeds and causes in your mind or in your storehouse consciousness, that is, alaya vijnana. These may ripen in this very life, or perhaps in a future life. In the end, you will definitely experience the consequences yourself. So why are there some illnesses in this life that can't be cured, or destinies that can't be changed? It is closely related to the karma you created in your previous life. So, when considering causes and effects, everyone should be mindful. Also remember that while all phenomena are ultimately empty, they are not in worldly appearances. It's just like when we dream. We know it was just a dream, but in the dream, there are still joys and sufferings.
Thank you, Khenpo. It's still best to cultivate more good thoughts. Let me bring up another question, which I think is a fairly common one among young students. May I ask the Master, people who possess wealth and status are considered to have good merits, but many such people are still not happy. On the other hand, most ordinary people, like farmers at the grassroots level, seem to feel happy. So does this mean that wealth and status are not true merits after all?
That's right. What we call wealth and status are only temporary blessings in this lifetime. If these temporary merits are used well with wisdom and compassion compared to ordinary people like farmers and workers at the grassroots level who work hard every day, it should be said that he truly has a wonderful and significant opportunity. For example, if I have wealth and status in society, and if my merits are quite good, I am very likely to use my status and wealth to help ordinary people, to help those in need. In such cases, for society and for more people, there should be a kind of blessing, a kind of happiness, actually. This is very good for everyone, without any doubt. But if we say that wealth and status are always blessings in every situation, I don't agree with that either. Although its cause is based on merits, the result you get ultimately depends on how you use it. Some people, after gaining status, do not cherish their position and eventually start doing many, many bad or harmful things. After acquiring wealth, people who originally had a good family situation may find that from then on, their family is no longer peaceful and there are constant quarrels and disputes because of money and wealth. All kinds of situations arise because of wealth. So even though its cause is a virtuous one, the result you get depends on how you use it. If you use it to accumulate more merits, then generally people at the bottom can't compare. So this can be called merit or good fortune. But if we don't use it well in the right way, sometimes in life it may seem like a great fortune on the surface, but in reality it brings harm to ourselves. It may look like a setback in life from our current perspective or view. But ultimately, relying on this in your life, you eventually encounter the truth. You eventually encounter wisdom. So sometimes the good and bad in life should be judged by the outcome.
Now, next question. How can we get sentient beings in this Saha world to believe in the cycle of birth and death?
Actually, whether you believe it or not depends on the individual and their background. Some people believe because they have their reasons based on experience. But if you don't believe in reincarnation, you also need to have a reason for that position. But nowadays, many people, because as I mentioned earlier, today our topic is the root of happiness is the mind, not about discussing past and present lives. I've also given some talks on the topic of past and present lives at other schools. Nowadays, both in the world, including Western and Eastern countries, religious and non-religious people alike have written some excellent and insightful books. Through these books and stories, one can reflect on oneself. Now, some people say, because I don't believe, I just don't acknowledge it. This way of thinking is unreasonable. Even if you don't believe, what if the next life really does exist? What will you do then? Have we ever considered this? Everyone present should stand on a fair and impartial ground. Have you ever thought about it yourself? If after a person dies, it's truly just like turning into a pile of ashes and nothing remains, if there really is nothing after that, then whether life is full of suffering or joy for these decades, it doesn't really matter. After all, after a few decades, it's all over. But in fact, that's not how it is. The reason it's not like that isn't simply because I'm a Buddhist myself or follow that tradition. Actually, this is something acknowledged by any religion, including Christianity and Catholicism. They also recognize the existence of past and future lives, as well as hell and heaven. What's more, nowadays, whether in Western countries or in Eastern countries, there are actually, in fact, many people who can indeed truly recall their past lives. This isn't about any particular religious belief. Some of you might ask, then why is it that not
This question, since another student has followed up on it, here's how they asked. What are the similarities or differences between the fundamental essence of samsara and the human mind or soul? What is the exact relationship between the essence of samsara and the subtlest clear light in consciousness?
Actually, when we talk about samsara, which is known as the cycle of rebirth, there are traditionally 6 realms of rebirth. At the top are the heavenly realm, the asura realm, and the human realm. These are called the 3 good destinies, the upper 3 levels. Below are the hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the animal realm. These are called the 3 lower realms. These 6 destinies are called the 6 realms of samsara. The meaning of samsara is that we are human beings in this life, but in the next life, if we do bad deeds, we might end up as hungry ghosts or animals. There are many possibilities. If we do good deeds, we may be reborn in the heavenly realm. If we do even greater virtuous deeds, then we can transcend the 6 realms of samsara, be reborn in the Pure Land, and attain enlightenment. This is the process. This process is explained in the broadest terms in Buddhism and related teachings. At this point, we need to understand, as I just mentioned, this mind of mine in its true nature. In fact, from beginningless time, over an incredibly long period spanning countless lifetimes and eons, I have been an ox, a horse, a human, and all sorts of different beings. And now I have arrived here today. Precisely because of this, everyone's habits and tendencies are different. As everyone knows, for example, in a family with 2 brothers, one may have a particularly kind nature while the other is not so kind. Even though their parents' blood types and the family environment are exactly the same, it is because of certain mental tendencies from past lives. Their unique habits, individual preferences, talents, and abilities are all different. This shows that apart from our physical bodies, there is another kind of cause at work. This cause is the mind. If we analyze this mind with a very detailed theory, Buddhism specifically discusses this, using the teachings of the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma to explain it. In fact, our mind actually has this truly luminous aspect. All the way until we attain Buddhahood, it completely transforms into the wisdom of a Buddha. Before that, throughout the 6 realms of samsara, each being has its own different mental state. When the mind is impure, it is the mind of an ordinary sentient being. It's like a raw, unrefined piece of ore, originally encrusted and entangled with all kinds of various impurities and unwanted materials. Later, through gradual refinement, it becomes pure gold. The essential nature of pure gold, when compared to its original state in the mountain, is fundamentally different. So, especially for many of you intellectuals, I especially hope that you truly realize and understand how important it is to study the mind. Buddhism discusses a great deal about the study of the mind. When our mind truly understands certain things, we become really very clear about the principles behind things outside ourselves. To be honest, sometimes we just talk about letting go or say we can see through things. It's just something we say. But in reality, before you truly understand the mysteries of the mind, I'm afraid there are many things you simply can't do. When you truly understand the origins and nature of the mind, then you'll know how to act both in the mundane world and in reality.
Thank you very much, Khenpo. The next question is from one of our Chinese studies class students. Adolescence is a crucial period for the formation of one's worldview. When will courses on classic Chinese teachings like Dizigui and 3-character classic be offered in China? Currently, college students lack morality and faith. How can this situation be changed? After all, the future of our country lies in the hands of the young people. What is your view on this issue?
I am a Tibetan, and regarding the traditional Chinese cultural thought of the Han people, when I was young, I did not receive any education in it. The education I received was the traditional Buddhist philosophy of Tibet. But later I came across a lot of traditional Chinese culture, including Dizigui and so on. After reading them, I was very surprised. I feel that young people today have no choice but to learn these. They absolutely must study them. If you carefully and thoughtfully study them, there will truly be hope and promise for the future of society. If you do not, I'm afraid that in the future, even if we continue to talk about development in writing or in the media, no matter how much we discuss or emphasize progress in words or in the media, people's hearts will still remain in a troubled or unhealthy state. We sincerely hope that many colleagues in the traditional culture classes, including ourselves, should first study texts like Dizigui, 3-character classic, and 1,000-character classic, as well as Doctrine of the Mean, The Great Learning, and so on. Including the Analects, Mencius, Junzi, and Laozi, I think many people have never had the opportunity to receive this kind of education before. This is truly a pity. Mainly, it was because of the Cultural Revolution at the time. Many people present here may have been victims of that. because at that time traditional culture was indeed overthrown. So how do we restore it now in this modern era? I think on the one hand, the entire national education system needs voices from all sides to contribute and participate. We should restore traditional culture that benefits everyone in society at large. At the same time, in higher education institutions like this, everyone has their own family responsibilities and work responsibilities. Within the scope of your own influence, you must promote works like the Dizi Gui and the three-character classic, among others. In this way, our ideas can gradually blossom everywhere, and at a certain point, the overall social atmosphere may change. Otherwise, many people here today, in another 20 years, many will be walking with canes, and whether we still exist in this world or not, who knows, maybe we'll have already left. Even if you haven't left, you'll have become an elderly person. If you haven't passed on the crucial and important values of filial piety and traditional culture and the responsibility they entail to the younger generation now, by that time, many of them may not take care of you anymore. From a personal perspective, this is truly about passing something on for yourself. There must be a transmission of love or an education in filial piety. This is essential. This is not something we can discuss casually. Everyone here today should vow to promote the Dizi Gui. Actually, it's very simple. Everyone can explain it. It's just that you haven't been exposed to it before. Everyone should make this vow. If you can't find other disciples, just start with your own children, those within your family's reach and authority. For those within your sphere of influence, you must make sure they listen to your teachings on Dizi Gui. In this way, we can carry forward and promote the spirit of traditional Chinese culture.
Thank you, Khenpo. This is the purpose of our traditional culture class. We hope more students will pay attention to it. Thank you, everyone. The next student question is, the foundation of culture and values in modern commercial society is to encourage greed, which in turn drives consumption and economic development. This system possesses powerful cultural tools to sustain itself. Television, the internet, movies, and works of art, all of these under such powerful inertia. How can Buddhism get more people to reflect on the shortcomings of this system? Do you think the role of Buddhism in modern society is very limited?
This is what I think. Now, as we are increasingly being driven by this particular kind of commercial culture, all kinds of media and news industries are scrambling to promote so-called greed and so-called values over and over again through various channels. In this process, I think Buddhism is not about asceticism. It's not that we completely suppress or control all desires, wealth, and attachments. It's not like that, as many people commonly misunderstand it. Here, let me gently remind everyone of something important. It's like when someone is learning to drive and there's a driving coach sitting next to them. There's a brake on this side and a brake on that side. If you really can't stop the car by yourself in time, the coach beside you will step on the brake for you to help out. This is to keep you from running endlessly toward the bottomless pit of desire without any control or awareness. At such times, you might get stuck in it and be unable to climb out. Although nowadays there is a lot of publicity, each with its own goals and its own values. But at the same time, people really need someone by their side for this value system. As I mentioned earlier, having another perspective to help you reflect is very important. For example, a young person who is particularly reckless. But if his parents are there to remind him, telling him that such behavior is not very reasonable, or if, at work, your behavior goes too far, some colleagues might remind you, saying your way of doing things might not be very beneficial for you personally. So, as a practicing Buddhist, I personally hope that from my heart, I also have the opportunity, even if it's just for a very small number of people. I'm very happy to have this opportunity now. And what is the reason for my happiness? Perhaps the values and teachings of Buddhism are very much needed in contemporary society. because many people feel very empty inside, and many people's desires are extremely strong. At such times, we remind everyone that your desires shouldn't be excessively strong. If your desires become too strong, they will bring you suffering. But Buddhism doesn't mean that you shouldn't make money, or that you should all go to the mountains to become monks, or cut off all your relationships with everyone you know. In other words, it doesn't emphasize things like that at all, including Shakyamuni Buddha himself. He never said this in any relevant Buddhist scriptures. Lay people have the conduct of lay people, and monastics have the conduct of monastics. So on this issue, Buddhism, on a spiritual level of inner development, should provide you with good guidance and direction in meaningful ways.
Now, two students have asked the same question, so I'll combine them and ask together. One student said, all eggs should not be eaten, but children really like to eat meat dishes, such as various kinds of meat. So this involves the issue of taking life. Another student asked about releasing animals versus killing. Releasing animals is to accumulate merit for oneself. But if you have no choice but to kill, like with flies or mosquitoes, will you receive bad karma?
As for eating vegetarian or non-vegetarian food, actually from a health perspective, eating vegetarian is generally considered to be very good for the body. Some people may feel that a vegetarian diet is lacking in nutrition, but this point of view is not just held by us Buddhists. It should be said that from many nutritional and medical perspectives around the world, humans are actually not the kind of animals suited to eating meat. This includes our internal organs and the structure of our bodies, such as the heart and lungs. In fact, humans themselves are not particularly suited to eating meat. After eating meat, there are indeed all kinds of bacteria that are present in the body. All kinds of diseases present in animals will naturally be transmitted as well. In contemporary times, many cancer patients, according to some medical experts, most cases originate from the modern-day meat-based diet. Therefore, Buddhism especially encourages everyone to eat vegetarian as much as possible. If you really cannot be vegetarian, then at least make an effort to try not to order the killing of animals. If you do order the killing, because of our education and the environment we grew up in, many people believe that humans are supposed to eat animals. But in fact, the life of an animal is just as valuable as that of a human. If we kill others just to nourish our own bodies, then in this lifetime, humans may seem to have the upper hand, but in the next life, it's very possible that you could transform into an animal, and it could transform into a human, and you might end up killing each other. To you, this might sound rather ridiculous or perhaps even absurd, but sometimes the law of cause and effect can turn something laughable into something tragic. So sometimes we really have to reflect on this issue. Why do we practice life release? Life release means that we save those pitiful beings who are about to be killed under the butcher's knife, and at that moment we set their lives free, liberate them, and let them experience happiness. From a human perspective, this is something that may be hard to put into words. For example, imagine you are about to be executed today, and someone comes to set you free. What would that mean to you? In fact, if you are someone who studies Buddhism or the science of life, such as in your daily life, then there is actually no difference between human life and the lives of other animals. I believe that at first many people often find this idea very novel, even laughable, strange, or indeed impossible to accept. They think, these animals are meant for us to eat. They are just my food. This kind of thinking is actually rather simplistic. Therefore, in the future, through practicing life release and sincerely respecting all forms of life, if we realize that we are wrong in certain ways, we should learn to sincerely repent. When we repent, there is a special mantra for repenting. Through such a mantra practice, it can also alleviate some of one's faults.
Because the guru just recited this mantra, a classmate just asked this question. I was originally planning to ask the question later. Since we got to this point, I decided to bring this question forward and ask it now. Homage to the greatly kind guru. When reciting the Amitabha heart mantra, many Dharma brothers say, Om Amitabha Ayusiddhi, whom she is too long and hard to recite. They hear the chanting machines and online recitations of Om Amitabha Shi and find it very convenient. May I ask, Guru, what is the difference between these two ways of chanting? For the 300,000 heart mantras promoted in the Great Bliss Dharma Assembly, which version should we recite? Thank you, Guru.
Just now, she recited different versions, which are the heart mantras of Amitabha Buddha. In our Buddhist Academy, in a couple of days, probably between November 1st and 8th, we will hold an 8-day Great Bliss Dharma Assembly. At this Great Bliss Dharma Assembly, everyone will make aspirations to be reborn in the pure land of great bliss. During the Dharma Assembly, we will recite the mantra mentioned earlier, which is a bit longer. Om Amitabha Aya Siddhi Hung She. Within the mantra, Om Amitabha Aya Siddhi Hong She, there is actually a more elaborate and extensive name of Amitabha Buddha included. So if you can recite the full name, the merit and blessings are even greater. Of course, if you recite the shorter heart mantra, that's also acceptable. But generally, when we recite 300,000 times, it's the slightly longer one we use, which is the mantra Om Amitabha Aya Siddhi Hong She. Many people who practice the Pure Land tradition in China recite Namo Amitabha Buddha in this particular way. So I think for many of you right now, everyone is young, accomplished, and energetic. But you will also grow old one day. When you get older, I especially hope that right now, maybe you like making money, you like working, and you don't have time to recite Amitabha Buddha's name. You might even think that reciting Amitabha Buddha's name is impossible for you. But in the end, when you recite Amitabha Buddha's name, you might feel a sense of comfort in your heart. I hope that if you can remember this, look back in 20 years and see for yourself. Many aspects of life won't be the same as they are now. Your body will also be covered in deep wrinkles. Your teeth will eventually fall out, and your hair will gradually turn completely white. The people around you won't treat you the same as they do now. They'll be more indifferent. Even when you leave this world, they might not really care that much. At that time, if we have a kind of many elderly people in Tibetan region are like this, they especially love to recite Amitabha Buddha's name and the Avalokiteshvara mantra. In this way, they feel especially at ease. Even if many people, including their own family, don't call them or come to visit, they still feel very happy and free in their hearts. But I see that many people here might not be like that. I've seen many reporters ask elderly people, what do you care about most? What they care about most is their children calling them. Yesterday was Elderly Day. I don't know if you called your elders. If you didn't, perhaps this kind of karma. When you grow old, your children might not pay attention to you either. They'll be busy with their own lives. This is also a kind of cycle, a kind of karmic retribution. So, in your later years, if you have a spiritual home in Buddhism, your mind may gradually find a deeper sense of belonging and comfort. I have seen this in the lives of many Tibetan Buddhists. Their lives are not lonely, not isolated, but instead are very joyful and connected. This isn't necessarily something you can buy with money, status, or anything else. So spiritual nourishment is something people always need to have. It can't be lacking.
For those who forgot to call their parents yesterday was the Double Ninth Festival. Make sure to make up for it today. Call them at noon if you can. Don't wait until someday we're old and our children don't call us either. Now, let me ask a rather cute question. I'm not sure which student asked this, but it's quite interesting. The question is, Khenpo, do you believe in love? I'm not sure which student asked this.
Believe in what exactly? What is it that you want me to believe in? Love? Yes, I absolutely believe in it.
Khenpo actually seems just a little bit shy, you know?
No, I'm not well.
Could you please answer? Just say whether you truly believe or not.
I think, as for so-called love, from a Buddhist perspective, we should believe in it as a reality. Why do I say this? Because it's something between people that exists in the human experience and connects us together. I also mentioned this in my last lecture today. I said, love is not necessarily happiness by its very nature. If we place our happiness on love entirely and completely, that's a mistake we often make. But does it bring you some joy and happiness at certain times in your daily life experience? This point is also acknowledged in Buddhist teachings and scriptures. The sixth patriarch said, Buddhism is not separate from the world of ordinary human experience. The Buddha also acknowledged this truth in his own teachings. The so-called love and life in this world. All of these are fully recognized and understood. As Buddhists, when we carefully look at and observe the real-life situations and experiences of so many different people in the world, it's impossible to deny they truly exist. But sometimes we need to reflect on the way these things exist and their underlying values. If you place them entirely on wealth, relationships, and status, can they really bring you lasting happiness and fulfillment? People nowadays have different preferences. Some have loved money since childhood. They don't care about love at all. As long as they have money, that's enough. Some people are especially attached to love. Nothing else matters to them, but they can't get over this issue. This even includes some Buddhists who are often like this as well. Other issues are easy to deal with, but I just can't let go of certain things. Many people are especially troubled by this. It's a common phenomenon. In fact, it is actually a form of attachment. It truly is an attachment from our past lives and an attachment to the opposite sex. There's also the attachment of greed. When you truly observe this kind of attachment with wisdom, it doesn't actually exist. But before a person reaches that state, one has to admit the dreamlike and illusory nature of love in the secular world.
Next, a student asks, what is your view when people face difficulties in life and can't figure things out no matter how hard they try? Many turn to the I Ching or fortune telling. What do you think? Today, it's popular to analyze 8 characters, change names, or adjust 5 elements. People believe these can help change their luck. What is your opinion on these phenomena?
Actually, even within Buddhism, even in modern times, there are some individuals who still practice fortune-telling and divination. There are also practices like feng shui and so on. These phenomena exist as well. In China's ancient culture, especially in Taoism, such practices are also quite prevalent. Among the popular trends that are prevalent today, it is possible that some of them may have been fabricated or created by later generations. Some trends are not entirely authentic, while others do indeed have a genuine historical basis. There are also those trends that truly connect with the natural world, the human body, and the mind. These are all related to the concept of causes and conditions. Buddhism also acknowledges this important concept of dependent origination. So, regarding this issue, it depends on which book you rely on. It depends on which source is orthodox and legitimate. Such methods of observation are also acknowledged in Buddhism. They are not entirely denied. However, we are not completely focused on this either. Nowadays, some people spend all of their time absorbed in these matters. In fact, this really isn't very reasonable. What should we truly seek most? It is wisdom and compassion in life, as well as faith and courage and so on, that truly matter. These important truths are what we should pursue the most in our lives. But at the same time, we also cannot deny certain specific behaviors and particular theories in life. However, among them, there are both truths and falsehoods. This issue also requires us to use wisdom to discern and choose.
Next, another student asked about Master Nan Huai-Chin, Mr. Nan Huai-Chin, because the elder passed away on September 29th. That is, on September 29th of this year, at the age of 95. This student asked, as a Dharma propagator of Tibetan Buddhism, how do you view the Dharma propagation work of the great master of Chinese studies, Mr. Nan Huai-Chin?
Actually, regarding Mr. Nan Huai-Chin, his methodology for thoughtfully integrating the ancient cultures of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, and promoting them in such a combined way, I feel great joy and respect for that in a very profound way. I used to really want to meet him face to face, but several times the opportunity just slipped away, unfortunately, due to various circumstances. In many of his books that I have read over the years, he truly has an exceptionally profound understanding of many theories and principles, both ancient and modern, Chinese and foreign. Moreover, even when he was over 90 years old, he continued to accept disciples and give teachings. especially when he spoke about the various theories and practical aspects of traditional ancient culture from different periods. He was extremely cautious with every detail and point. Such a great master is now very rare in many places in our modern era and contemporary society, although he has already left this world. Some of the precious and significant works that he left behind still remain in this world and can still be found and appreciated today. Of course, there are some individuals who have different views on his efforts to spread the Dharma, or in other words, on his insights and perspectives. This is also quite normal. Since ancient times, whenever any great and notable virtuous person, wise man, or significant theorist has come to prominence, others have always talked about them, discussed and debated their views. This is a natural phenomenon, something that naturally occurs in the world. Of course, I haven't read all of his books. I've only read a select few of them, including the book titled What the Diamond Sutra Says. From this book, in fact, when religion had just reopened in that era, many young people at the time were introduced to Buddhism through this book, among others. So on the day he manifested parinirvana and left this world within a small circle, we all prayed and chanted sutras together to honor his memory and merit. There was such a ceremony as well. Yeah.
This is also a question raised by one of our classmates. It might be a bit more specialized, particularly in the area of Buddhism. May I ask, when Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva practiced deeply the Prajnaparamita, he saw that the 5 aggregates are all empty, thus overcoming all suffering and distress. Is this the embodiment of the middle way philosophy you mentioned? If one wishes to study the philosophy, could you introduce the sequence of study, where to start, and what issues to pay attention to?
The sentence just now comes from the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra is a well-known Buddhist scripture. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, having received the blessing of Shakyamuni Buddha, then entered into meditative absorption, and after abiding in the state of Prajnaparamita, spoke the words of this sutra. Therefore, this is a scripture expounded through the Buddha's blessing. For example, the Prajnaparamita Samgraha Gatha is an ancient Buddhist sacred scripture spoken directly by the Buddha himself. What he just mentioned, this clearly reflects the Madhyamaka philosophy of emptiness. If we want to practice or study this philosophy of emptiness, we should probably start with the root stanzas of the middle way, entering the middle way, and the 400 stanzas on the middle way. In Tibetan region, there are 3 major Madhyamaka texts. It is best if you have the opportunity to study these 3 major Madhyamaka texts. After that, there are 4 stages of realization in Madhyamaka. First, all phenomena are discerned as empty. Then emptiness is seen as free from conceptual elaborations. Then equanimity. And finally, equanimity is seen as the inconceivable state. One can study and practice according to these 4 stages of Madhyamaka realization. Of course, before reaching such a state, one should first analyze with theory to understand what exactly Madhyamaka teaches. Because within Madhyamaka, there is a method of directly abiding in emptiness. Just like what I am talking about now with the Platform Sutra of the 6th Patriarch, there is a direct method of abiding and another method, which is to repeatedly observe, analyze, and arrive at the truth that all phenomena are empty.
Due to time constraints, many people still have questions. I will pick 3 more at the end. If any students are not selected, we will continue with questions this afternoon. Let me give an example from a student. He said, I have a friend, and many circumstances suggest he has a deep affinity with Buddhism. For example, he has dreamed his Dharma eye was opened, and so on. He was once very devout, but in the first half of his life, he suffered hardship after hardship, which almost broke him. Now, his faith is not as strong as before. On the contrary, he no longer seems to encounter disasters. He asks, what is going on? What should I do? Master, please give us your guidance.
Generally speaking, it's not that his faith in Buddhism or his confidence has caused this situation to happen to him in any way. Usually when someone has faith and is cultivating goodness diligently with sincere effort, it is very likely that the negative karma he is destined to face in the future will come to him quickly and ripen in this lifetime instead. After he loses his faith, although his life seems uneventful, the karma he created in the past will still be waiting for him in the future ahead. Therefore, some things that happen in our lives now, it may seem that when you do bad deeds, everything goes smoothly and normally, while doing good deeds is met with all kinds of obstacles. In fact, this is not caused by doing good. Whenever we plant a seed, it is impossible for the fruit to ripen immediately. The misfortune and difficulties we encounter today are the result of negative karma created in past lives, which is now coming to fruition. And the good deeds I am doing now, such as developing faith in the 3 jewels and so on, these will bring about results in our future lives. So this kind of cause and effect relationship, actually, through studying, we come to understand many principles. If you haven't studied systematically, some issues may seem, on the surface, to be somewhat contradictory. But in reality, there is no contradiction, and in fact, there is a very profound meaning behind them.
What do you think your mission in life is? How do you find or discover your life's mission?
As for my mission, I used to think that my mission was simply to read books. I really love reading. No matter if I was in elementary school, middle school, or any other kind of school, I always truly loved reading books. So I thought my main mission in life was to read and to study as much as possible. But later on I thought, if I have even a little bit of ability or strength, if I have even a little bit of courage, then with the bits of wisdom and insights I've gained from years of reading and studying Buddhism with dedication over a long period of time, I really want to share them with others. In fact, in Tibetan Buddhism, the so-called Khenpo is someone who is supposed to pass on their knowledge to others. That's what it means. Back when I was actually at the Buddhist Academy many years ago, I was also granted this kind of title. At first, it wasn't very strict, but now our academy is very strict about it. At that particular time, it was actually kind of similar to how some correspondence universities are named nowadays in the present day. When I first received the Khenpo title, the timing of the event was a bit irregular and somewhat unexpected. I got the Khenpo title very quickly, and later I thought, since I am a Khenpo, as long as I am alive and still breathing, I have often wondered if I could possibly pass on the Buddhist teachings and the profound truths about compassion that I understand to those with a karmic connection. Even if only one person listens, as long as I have my last breath, I will do my utmost. That's the thought I have in my heart. I think this is the mission of every person, not to harm sentient beings and to benefit those around us as much as possible. Even if it's just one person doing one good deed in a day or in a year, that is a very meaningful historical mission. Of course, everyone has their own specific mission. This may be something you choose. Even if I say it, you might not carry it out.
Thank you, Khenpo. I remember reading your introduction. Khenpo started studying at 14, and now you are widely read. Many children in families start learning a lot from a very young age. But in the end, they may have only learned a skill without truly attaining a higher spiritual state. Khenpo only started studying at the age of 14 and became a monk at 23. And up to now, the followers around Khenpo form a very large community of believers. This is the power of the spirit. A reporter asked a question. Let's save this as our last question. There is a reporter present. I don't know which media outlet they're from. He said that not long ago he saw your teaching on the great cloud of blessings online. He felt greatly benefited by it. Today's theme is happiness. Could we ask Khenpo to bless everyone here with this prayer? May all the students present today who are connected by fate be happy and at ease. So I have saved this question as the last one for this morning. Khenpo, please.
This prayer, when I went to Mount Wutai this year, at that time, I was in a cave for retreat and practice. I spent my 50th birthday there in quiet contemplation. No one bought me a cake. I made a vow there by myself. I said within a year I would recite it 20 times a day, but later I realized I couldn't finish it in a year. So it actually took me about a year and a half to recite it 10,000 times. Because the Great Cloud of Blessings was composed by a Tibetan accomplished master, an emanation of Manjushri Mipham Rinpoche. After you finish reciting it, when you are done, your body and mind will both attain freedom. This is something that I myself have also discovered through more than 20 years of practice. The blessing power of this Dharma is truly immense. If I try to describe it in words, you might not believe me. Since the reporter just now made such a request, I will recite it for everyone here gathered today. Let this be the conclusion of our last class this morning. All right, as we finish together. Om Maurodazin Barawan Kapotanda, Detonso Toba Jerka, Machadena Bamerazene, Dorjamana Jemo, Churkano Antai Dorjichu, and Jitanwashi Tijijas, Pamajaron Kondemon, Gerard, Notazano Anjer, Sai Shembanzara, Dojo Vergero de Gender, Mali Kirki and Production March on the Jardian Juder, on the Dorje Hawan Rakis, not on Yamba Chimbongan, Dorjiki, Karkichosan Young, Amazon Jadrika, was a Marbon Corde on Lacha, Chijitam Jevajan the British, Dorjava Chimbotiginer. 난영어 좀 도김 도르지샤 지적바 침보에 한도 대화 침보던 시바 타이 점주 트라이로 그전 더기 공시야 람저 자성원 걸 하소라 기베 소란데 조신질라 저동어 좀 도기 환 통명왕의 시병어 저저러. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Khenpo. Thank you to all the students present. Thank you all for your questions. Once again, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Khenpo. Let us give a warm round of applause to send off Khenpo as he leaves the stage.